Welcome back, everybody, to The Deep Dive. It feels like every time we look up, there's like a tidal wave of AI news.
I know, right?
And today is no exception.
Definitely not.
We got a ton of fascinating stuff to dive into, from international politics,
Yeah.
geopolitics, all the way to research that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction.
It's really incredible that the pace of development in this field is just
It's mind-blowing, right?
mind-boggling.
Yeah, so we want to go beyond just the headlines with you today, and really dig into what matters.
Absolutely.
So first up, we've got the U.S. and the U.K. both making some pretty big moves in AI, but their strategies are like wildly different.
Yeah, you could almost say they're looking at two completely different potential futures for AI.
Yeah.
So in a kind of last-minute move, the Biden administration has decided to put some pretty strict restrictions on those super powerful AI chips that Nvidia makes.
Right. Those are the ones that power everything from like gaming computers to like the massive data centers, right?
Exactly. They're the heart of a lot of AI development and research, and the U.S. wants to keep them out of China's hands.
So it's all about maintaining that technological edge, even if it means potentially like slowing down innovation a bit.
Well, that's what Nvidia is arguing anyway. They're saying these restrictions could actually stifle their ability to compete and develop new tech.
So what does this mean for the rest of us, though? Like, could this impact the availability or cost of like the next generation of graphics cards, for example?
It's possible. If innovation slows down at the top, it could have a ripple effect throughout the entire industry, potentially impacting everything from the price of consumer electronics to the pace of AI development itself.
Right. It's a bit of a high-stakes game, isn't it, with the future of AI hanging in the balance?
Absolutely.
Now, while the U.S. is kind of playing defense here, the U.K. is going all in on AI to boost their economy.
Yeah, they've really embraced this technology. They've got this ambitious action plan that involves pouring resources into AI computing power. They're even setting up special growth zones for data centers.
Like AI-powered cities of the future.
It's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild. But it's not all sunshine and roses over there. United Union's already sounding the alarm bells about potential job displacement and algorithmic bias.
Right. They're worried about AI embedding discrimination into hiring practices or even, essential services.
It's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in all the excitement about progress, but we can't forget about those potential downsides.
Absolutely. Those concerns are totally valid. And it raises the question of whether the UK is rushing into this AI-powered future without considering all the angles. I mean, they're facing challenges with energy supply, for one thing.
Right.
And then there's the whole issue of integrating AI into public services, which could be a lot more complicated than they're anticipating.
So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about how we use it and the impact it has on society.
Exactly. We need to be having these conversations about ethics and responsibility alongside all the talk of innovation and progress.
Well said. Now, speaking of AI taking on new roles, there's this story that caught my eye about Alibaba, the e-commerce giant. They're developing a new AI sourcing agent called Achio.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. It sounds pretty intriguing.
I mean, I've spent hours, trying to find the right supplier for even simple things. So the idea of AI that can streamline that whole process is pretty appealing.
This isn't just like a souped-up search engine, though.
Okay.
It's more like having a conversation with a sourcing expert. You tell Achio what you need, and it guides you through the whole process. Asks clarifying questions, suggests alternatives you might not have even considered, and it can even handle real-time video translation if you're dealing with international suppliers.
Wow. So it's like having a personal sourcing expert in your pocket who speaks every language.
Pretty much.
That could be a game changer for businesses, especially smaller ones that don't have the resources for big sourcing teams.
Exactly. It levels the playing field in a lot of ways.
So we've got AI stepping into international trade now. What's next?
Well, this idea of AI taking over tasks usually done by humans actually leads us to another really interesting story. It's about this research framework called Dolphinton that's using AI to automate scientific research.
Wait, AI scientists?
Yeah, you heard that right.
Okay, how does that even work?
So essentially, they've created a system where AI runs experiments, analyzes data, and even comes up with new hypotheses all on its own.
Hold on, so you're saying there's like a robot out there somewhere in a lab coat doing science?
Not quite a robot, but you get the idea.
But seriously, What are the implications of this? I mean, does this mean human scientists are going to be out of a job?
It's a valid question, and it's sparking a lot of debate in the scientific community. Some experts believe this could actually free up human scientists to focus on the bigger picture questions, the ones that require that spark of genius that AI might not be able to replicate.
Right.
But others are worried about the ethical implications and the potential for unintended consequences. What if an AI designs an experiment that leads to some unexpected and potentially harmful outcome? Who's responsible then?
It's a lot to think about, that's for sure. But before we dive into even more AI news, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how AI is being used to unlock the mysteries of something we use everyday language.
Yeah, this is a fascinating story about how researchers are using AI to understand how humans learn languages. And they're doing it in a really unique way by creating entirely new languages that have never existed before.
Wait, they're just making up languages?
It sounds crazy, right? But there's a method to the madness.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
So they're creating these artificial languages that have grammatical structures that you wouldn't find in any human language, like a linguistic puzzle for the AI. They're then training neural networks on these impossible languages to see if they can learn them.
So they're basically throwing a curveball at the AI to see how it adapts.
Exactly.
But what does that tell us about human language, though?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The fact that these AI systems can learn these bizarre, made-up languages suggests that the way humans learn language might not be as unique as we thought. It could be that our brains are using more general learning mechanisms that can be applied to any kind of language system, even ones that seem totally alien to us.
Wow. So we're using AI to reverse engineer our own brains.
In a way, yes. It's giving us a whole new perspective on how human cognition works.
That's incredible. All this talk about language is making me realize something. We've covered a ton of ground already, and we're just getting started.
I know, right? We've barely scratched the surface. We've got more fascinating AI news lined up, from how AI is impacting personal finance to the rise of AI clones.
Buckle up, everyone, because the deep dive continues.
Welcome back. It feels like every time we turn around, there's another headline about AI stepping into a role that used to be, exclusively human.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing, right? Like, are we going to be obsolete soon?
Well, I don't think we're there yet, but it's definitely a trend worth watching.
For sure. So speaking of AI trying to replace us, we've got a couple of stories today that really highlight that trend.
Okay, what have you got?
Well, first up, there's this story from Wired about AI financial advisors that are specifically targeting young people who are living paycheck to paycheck.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one. I mean, on the surface, it sounds like it could be a good thing, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, a lot of people don't have access to traditional financial advisors. So AI could potentially make financial advice more accessible?
Exactly. But there's also a potential dark side to this.
Right. Like, what's to stop these AI advisors from taking advantage of people who are already struggling financially?
That's a big concern.
Yeah.
How do we know these AI systems aren't just going to push products that benefit the companies behind them instead of giving truly unbiased advice?
Yeah, it's like, how do we know they're not just digital versions of those pushy salespeople who try to sell you stuff you don't need?
Exactly. It's a valid worry. And it really highlights the need for regulation and oversight in this space.
Mm.
We need to make sure these AI financial advisors are held to the same ethical standards as human advisors.
Yeah, and transparency is key too, right?
Yeah.
Like, users should know exactly how these systems work, what data they're using, and how their recommendations are being generated.
Absolutely. Trust but verify, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit, there's this other story that just blew my mind. It's about researchers who are creating AI clones that can simulate real people.
Oh, wow. I read about that. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie.
I know, right? It's kind of creepy, but also fascinating. So basically, they've created over 1,000 of these AI agents, each one trained to mimic a specific person based on in-depth interviews.
And the crazy thing is, these AI clones can predict how the real people would respond in different situations with incredible accuracy.
Yeah, it's like they've created digital doppelgangers that can think and act like the people they're based on.
It's wild, isn't it? I mean, think about the possibilities. Imagine creating virtual spokespeople who are so lifelike that they can actually connect with audiences on an emotional level.
Or what about bringing back historical figures? Like, imagine having a conversation with an AI version of Einstein or Marie Curie.
The possibilities are pretty much endless, but it also raises a lot of ethical questions, Like, what happens to our sense of identity and authenticity when we can create perfect digital copies of ourselves?
Yeah, it's a bit of a slippery slope for sure. But hey, speaking of blurring the lines between reality and simulation, did you see that story about the AI Michael Parkinson podcast?
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating one. They've basically trained an AI model to interview celebrities just like the legendary Michael Parkinson using his unique style and mannerisms.
It's crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
they've essentially brought him back from the past, but in a digital form.
It makes you wonder if this is the future of entertainment, preserving the personalities and wisdom of people long after they're gone.
It's definitely an intriguing concept. But part of me also wonders about the authenticity of it all. Can an AI really capture the true essence of a human being with all their complexity and nuance?
That's a great question, and one that I think we'll be grappling with for a long time as AI becomes more sophisticated.
Definitely. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the business side of AI because there's a lot happening there too.
It seems like every day there's another story about a company raising millions of dollars to develop some new AI-powered product or service.
Yeah, the investment in this sector is just exploding. And healthcare in particular seems to be a hotbed for AI innovation.
Absolutely. There was that story about Sarah, the UK-based in-home healthcare provider that just raised $150 million to scale its AI platform.
And then there's Coventus, an AI startup that's using AI to optimize hospital operations. They just got $105 million in funding.
It's clear that investors see huge potential in AI to transform healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, AI could help us predict patient needs, personalize treatments, and even automate tasks in hospitals.
Exactly. It could make healthcare more efficient, more accessible, and more affordable.
But there are also risks involved, right? Like what happens if these systems malfunction or get hacked?
Those are valid concerns, and it's important to address them head on. We need to make sure that these AI systems are developed and deployed responsibly with the proper safeguards in place.
Right, because at the end of the day, we're talking about people's lives here.
Exactly. We
Yeah.
can't afford to be careless when it comes to healthcare.
Now, speaking of big investments in AI, there was a lot of buzz at CES 2025 about the latest advancements in robotics and AI software.
Yeah. Engine AI was there showing off their new line of humanoid robots, which were pretty impressive.
And of course, Nvidia was there too with their new AI software that's supposed to accelerate the development of even more powerful AI agents.
It seems like the AI industry is just unstoppable right now.
Yeah, and Microsoft is definitely betting big on AI. They've formed a new core AI unit, and they're reportedly considering a pretty hefty price increase for their M365 software suite to fund all their AI initiatives.
Wow, a 45% price hike in Asia. That's going to cause some sticker shock.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well that's going to go over,
Okay.
but it shows you just how seriously Microsoft is taking AI.
It's clear that AI is becoming increasingly integrated into our daily lives, whether we realize it or not.
And that trend is only going to accelerate in the coming years.
Exactly. Which is why it's so important to stay informed and engage in these conversations about the ethical implications of AI.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we're using this technology for good and that it benefits all of humanity.
Well said.
Now, believe it or not, we've got even more AI news to cover. We'll be right back after a quick break with more insights and analysis as the AI revolution continues to unfold. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's one thing to talk about AI's potential, but it's another thing to see it actually happening in the real world. And sometimes the results are pretty unsettling.
Yeah, there are definitely some headlines out there that make you wonder if we're moving too fast with this technology without fully considering the consequences. Exactly. Like this story in The Guardian about X's new AI software Grok. It's a generative AI chatbot that's been getting a lot of attention lately.
Yeah, I've heard about that one. It's supposed to be really good at creating all kinds of content, from poems to code.
Right, but now it's facing some serious criticism because people have used it to create fake racist images.
Oh, wow. That's not good.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark reminder that we need to be incredibly careful about how we develop and deploy these powerful AI systems. That we can't just assume that they're going to be used for good.
Absolutely. We need to be proactive about building in safeguards and ethical considerations from the very beginning.
It's like giving someone a loaded gun without any safety training.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
The potential for harm is huge. And speaking of potential downsides, there's that article in the Register about Microsoft considering a 45% price hike for its M365 suite in Asia.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. They're
Yeah.
saying it's to fund all their new AI features. Right, which makes sense on one level. I mean, developing this technology is expensive.
Yeah.
But if those costs are passed on to consumers, it could create a barrier to access, especially for smaller businesses and individuals.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
Mhm.
Companies need to make a profit, but we also don't want to create a situation where only the wealthy can afford the latest AI tools.
Exactly. It's like, are we heading towards a digital divide where the rich get richer and the poor get left behind?
That's a valid concern, and it's one that we need to address as a society. We need to make sure that the benefits of AI are shared by everyone, not just a select few.
I completely agree. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of AI, I'm curious, what's your biggest takeaway from all this news?
I think for me, it's the sheer speed of progress. It's just incredible how quickly this field is evolving. Every day there's a new breakthrough, a new application, a new ethical dilemma to consider.
It's definitely a lot to keep up with, but it's also incredibly exciting. We're living through a technological revolution, and who knows what the future holds.
Yeah, that's what makes it so fascinating. We're all kind of figuring this out as we go along.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of AI. It's been a wild ride, and we're sure it's only going to get wilder from here.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned. We'll be back soon with more insights and analysis as the AI revolution continues to unfold.